Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a story so audacious, so unbelievable, it almost defies belief, yet it's etched right into history. Picture this. London, 1822. The long shadow of the Napoleonic Wars. Finally gone. And in its place, peace and this almost dizzying prosperity. The city isn't just bustling, it's like vibrating with energy. It's this vibrant, chaotic symphony of ambition, right? Fortunes made and lost just like that. The Industrial Revolution's kicking off, trade's expanding, and the air is thick with, well, coal smoke, yeah, but also this scent of speculation. Everyone's looking for the next big break. And right into the heart of this kind of fevered atmosphere steps a man named Gregor MacGregor. And he's not just a man, he's like a legend in the making, meticulously crafted in this, fertile ground of dreams and desperate hopes. McGregor pulled off one of history's most audacious and frankly really cruel cons. He managed to sell a country that didn't exist. Just imagine that, a phantom kingdom. It had its own flag, its own currency, even a constitution. Bought and sold right in the heart of the British Empire, luring hundreds of hopeful, innocent people, well, to their doom.
And that's exactly what we're here to unpack today. In this deep dive, we're going to trace the incredible and frankly chilling journey of Gregor MacGregor, a man who styled himself as the cazique of Poyais. Now, for anyone unfamiliar, a cazique is a term for like a native chieftain or prince, and he deliberately chose that word, to project this image of indigenous authority, but also with a sort of European royal gloss. Very calculated. We'll follow his path from maybe a romantic dreamer, perhaps even a bit delusional at first, to this master manipulator whose charisma, well, it just seemed like it could bend reality itself. Our mission isn't just to tell you what happened, though the sheer scale of it is staggering enough, but to really explore why. Why did so many intelligent, seemingly grounded people fall for something so elaborate? This story is a really potent lesson, isn't it? About the power of a good story, the allure of a fresh start, and the truly devastating price of lies. And, what specific psychological buttons McGregor knew exactly how to push.
Yeah, and to guide us through this whole intricate web of deceit, we've been driving into a really detailed narrative. It reads almost like a historical play, actually, chronicling the dramatic rise and, well, the tragic fall of this phantom kingdom and the complex, charismatic guy behind it all. It's a story with layers, definitely, and we're going to peel them back one by one for you. So let's really set the scene again, because understanding the environment is just so key here. London, 1822. The city is practically humming, right? That post-Napoleonic war energy. Peace brings this surge of optimism, this almost fevered atmosphere of investment opportunity everywhere. It wasn't just a place where money was made, it was where ideas, no matter how wild, could suddenly seem real. The drawing rooms, the coffee houses, they weren't just for chatting. They were like incubators for new ventures, fortunes dreamed up. Everyone from the new merchant class bubbling up to the sort of frustrated gentry was looking for the next big thing, the next frontier, the next way to get rich, or maybe even more importantly, climb that social ladder. And into this ambitious buzz steps Gregor MacGregor. He's almost mythical, really. His name's whispered everywhere, halls of power, grimy back alleys, you name it. He builds this persona, doesn't he? A great war hero. Fought alongside Simon Bolivar himself down in South America, a real romantic figure. But he's more than a soldier. He's a prince, the cazique of Poyais, this faraway land, and he tells everyone it's packed with untold riches, boundless opportunity, utopia just waiting. And he's arrived in London, not just visiting, oh no. He's here to share this incredible fortune with the world, specifically, his British allies.
And tonight, the Lord Mayor of London himself, no less, is throwing this magnificent banquet in McGregor's honor. Just imagine, Mansion House. It's ablaze with light, chandeliers gleaming, this hum of conversation, music, laughter. Tables are just groaning under the weight of silver, crystal exotic foods, fine wines. It's a real show of wealth and influence. Now, this isn't just any party. This is the cream of London society. The most powerful bankers, the shrewdest merchants, influential politicians, old aristocracy, everyone's there. And they're all eager, right? Just desperate to catch a glimpse of this mysterious, celebrated man, Gregor MacGregor. The whole scene is perfectly designed for maximum impact, a stamp of official recognition.
And then he makes his entrance, and it's pure theater. Gregor MacGregor, mid-30s, tall, strikingly handsome. He's got that bearing, a seasoned soldier. But then this sort of poet's eyes people talked about. A compelling mix. He's not just in a uniform. He's in the full dress uniform of a British general. His chest is just a constellation of medals and honors, each one implying heroism, right? He looks every single inch the distinguished adventurous leader he claims to be, like someone straight out of a novel. But he's not alone. On his arm, this woman of just breathtaking beauty, a real vision. He introduces her as Princess Josefa of Poyais, his wife. Her dark eyes, olive skin, it's such a contrast to the English roses in the room. Adds another layer of mystique and, crucially, makes it all seem more real. I mean, an actual princess. Wow, that must have just cemented his credibility, didn't it? Turned him from adventurer into, like, a real sovereign in their eyes.
Oh, absolutely. The presence of Princess Josefa was a stroke of genius, a critical element in making the illusion stick. She wasn't just, a pretty face. She gave his phantom kingdom this human royal touch, made Poyais feel even more tangible, more real, especially to that crowd, so used to titles and aristocracy. She was living proof, it seemed, of his status, his domain. And McGregor's charm offensive, masterful, moved through the room with his easy grace, suggesting genuine royalty, smiles for everyone, charming conversation, maybe a self-deprecating joke to disarm people. He was, disarmingly modest, but totally captivating. Spoke of his adventures, the battles, the hardships, but then his tone softens when he talks about his beloved Poyais. He paints this picture, doesn't he? Irresistible. Fertile soil harvests 3 times a year, crystal clear rivers, practically panning for gold, mountains overflowing with wealth. He described it as a paradise on earth, a place where a man could not just get rich, but live like a king, get away from the rigid class system back home. It was utopia, tailored perfectly to their desires.
And the Londoners, these supposedly tough, cynical men of business, they absolutely bought it. Hook, line, and sinker, hanging on every word, eyes shining with, what? Greed, admiration. Both. It wasn't just an investment. They saw their own dreams reflected back at them, didn't they? Their ambitions for wealth, for status. McGregor was living the life they dreamed of, and they were desperate to get a piece of it, a shortcut to riches, to respect. It's easy to look back and think, how could they be so gullible? But what was it about that moment, that story?
That's the million-pound question, isn't it? And it really speaks to McGregor's deep understanding of psychology and, the times. The stark truth, which no one in that room knew, was brutal. Those medals, fake, probably bought from a costume shop. The general's uniform, just a costume tailored to impress. And the stunning Princess Josefa. Well, she was basically a figment of his imagination, a brilliant embellishment, maybe an actress he hired, maybe just conjured from his descriptions. We don't even know for sure Poyais itself. A monumental lie. A phantom kingdom spun from his own deceptive mind. These eager Londoners were unwitting players in one of the most audacious, elaborate, and ultimately, yes, cruelest cons in history. They were just desperate to believe, and McGregor knew exactly how to exploit that desperation. The how is this mix, isn't it? Post-war money sloshing around, not much regulation, this romantic idea about colonies, and crucially, McGregor tapping into biases, like a confirmation bias, hearing what you want to hear. And vivid stories just feel truer than facts, right? Plus, his narrative offered this chance to flip the social script, escape Britain's class system. Become your own master. That's powerful stuff. Maybe more powerful than just money for some. Hashtag tag, the making of a soldier of fortune.
Okay, so to really get the man who'd sell a non-existent country and why he was so driven to build this fantasy, we need to go back to beginning. To the boy who dreamed of being a king, Gregor MacGregor, born 1786, into the McGregors, proud Scottish clan, ancient but poor. This is Rob Roy's clan, remember? That name means something romantic rebellion, outlawry, Scottish resistance. But by Gregor's time, the glory days were long gone. Lands confiscated after the Jacobite rebellions, power broken. Just a shadow of their former selves, really. Burdened by this amazing past, but a very humble present. So Gregor grows up steeped in this, vanished glory, head full of heroic tales of his ancestors' daring, honor, lost sovereignty. He was, by all accounts, a romantic, a dreamer, yearning for adventure, glory, reclaiming that family grandeur. But he's living in a very material world, too, where a man's worth is measured by his fortune, his social standing, not just his name. He's a dreamer in a practical world, and that clash, it fuels his ambition, doesn't it? This deep craving for recognition, for wealth.
Absolutely. That internal conflict, it's foundational. So at 16, his family scrapes together what they can and buys him a commission in the British Army. This is right at the start of the Napoleonic Wars. Huge upheaval, but also opportunity for an ambitious young man. And Gregor, handsome, naturally charming, he makes a mark quickly. By all accounts, a natural soldier. Brave, resourceful, could lead men, definitely not a coward. But as he rises, something else starts showing. More than just military skill, it's this obsession almost with rank, especially the uniforms, the medals, the whole show. Those symbols of authority seem to captivate him, maybe even more than the actual fighting. It hints at someone more interested in the look of power than the substance.
That's interesting. So he wasn't just pursuing a career, he was building an identity. He wasn't content being just a capable soldier, no matter how brave. He saw himself as a hero, a man of destiny, someone who'd reclaim that lost clan glory himself. So he starts embellishing, building a persona bigger than life. He just decides he's a colonel, a rank he hadn't earned. and pins on a knight's badge from Portugal. Again, totally unearned. So he becomes Sir Gregor MacGregor, a man of consequence. By his own decree, basically, through sheer nerve and self-promotion.
Exactly. And his huge ambitions, his obvious self-aggrandizement, they inevitably clash with the British Army's rigid structure. That world was all about strict hierarchy, protocol, chain of command, not self-appointed titles. So in 1810, after some trivial argument with the superior, which probably wasn't trivial to MacGregor, likely a challenge to his inflated sense of self, he retires. Or maybe quits in a huff. His dreams of conventional military glory in tatters for now. He goes back to Scotland, but he's changed. He tasted that, fame, even if he made it up himself. He wasn't letting go. The army just couldn't contain his ego.
So he returns to Scotland looking for respect, right? But his attempts to break into Edinburgh society met with snobbery, indifference. He's seen as this guy with no real fortune, no proper title, not quite good enough for the elite. And that rejection, that slight, it really stung him, reopened those old wounds about his clan status. It was then facing that reality he makes this key decision, the one that changes everything. If he can't find fame and fortune in the old world, fine, he'll go seek it in the new. Radical, but totally McGregor. Hashtag tag adventures in the new world.
Right, so 1811, Gregor MacGregor sails across the Atlantic, heads for South America, a continent just, in the throes of revolution. The massive Spanish Empire ruling for centuries is crumbling, colonies fighting bloody wars for independence. You've got leaders like Simon Bolivar forging new nations. It was a time of huge danger, brutal fighting, shifting loyalties, but also incredible opportunity. A perfect chaotic stage for someone with MacGregor's particular talents and ambition. He thrived in places where the rules were being rewritten, didn't he? Where a clever guy could carve out his own destiny, invent his own past, and nobody checked too closely.
So he arrives in Venezuela. Breathtaking beauty, but brutal warfare too. He offers his services to the revolutionaries, and they welcomed him. They were desperate for experienced soldiers, especially anyone with European training. MacGregor, playing up his British Army background and crucially that self-proclaimed Sir Gregor title, he looked like a valuable asset, a prize catch for their cause. His constructed persona paid off immediately, gave him access he wouldn't have had back home.
He gets a battalion sent into the jungle to fight the Spanish. And to give him his due, he actually proves pretty capable. Maybe not brilliant, but capable. Showed real bravery, resourcefulness, knew how to inspire loyalty in his men. He even fought alongside the legendary Simon Bolivar himself, the liberator. In a really smart move, strategically, he marries Bolivar's cousin, a woman known for beauty and influence in those circles. What's fascinating here is how he uses these real connections, his actual military ability, to build this foundation of legitimacy. He knew you need some truth to sell a big lie, right? He wove himself into the revolution's fabric, used real relationships to boost his own story, leveraging that social proof brilliantly.
But MacGregor was never just a soldier, was he? Always deep down a showman. He understood the power of image, illusion, especially when national identity, military prestige were being forged. He designed his own uniforms, distinctive flags, impressive medals, every detail adding to this larger-than-life persona, this heroic figure leading men to glory. He was basically walking political theater, wasn't he? Constantly reinventing himself, crafting a new, more glorious version of his story for everyone to see. Perception was reality for him, especially in that chaotic setting where symbols mattered so much.
And his talent for deception wasn't just for self-promotion. In 1817, he gets together this small army, basically mercenaries, freebooters, and he captures Amelia Island off Florida from the Spanish, claims it for the revolutionaries. Then he immediately declares it a free republic and starts selling land to eager American investors. Raised a huge amount, $160,000, massive sum back then. But when the Spanish military counterattacked, MacGregor did what MacGregor does when things get truly dangerous. He abandoned his men. Without a second thought, fled to the Bahamas, money safely tucked away. A chilling preview, really, of his later, much bigger betrayal. Showed his ruthlessness, his absolute focus on himself.
And this became his pattern, didn't it? Tragically. Always one step ahead of creditors, one step ahead of the law, just beyond reach. Master of the grand gesture, the bold stroke, the audacious lie. He learned from each of these smaller cons, didn't he? Honed his craft. Saw how easily people were swayed by promises of wealth, status. He was building towards something huge, driven by that need for glory, gain, yes, but also developing this real expertise in large-scale fraud. Hashtag tag birth of Poyais. Okay, so after these adventures, these trial runs in deception and betrayal, McGregor ends up somewhat unexpected. 1820, he's on the Mosquito Coast, now parts of Honduras. Nicaragua was remote, undeveloped. Dense jungle, malarial swamps, scattered native villages, the Mosquito people, to most people. Utterly worthless land. Inhospitable, the kind of place you avoid, right? Seemingly nothing going for it.
But to McGregor, the eternal dreamer, the opportunist who saw potential where others saw wasteland and who had zero regard for reality. This worthless stretch was the opposite. To him, it wasn't a blank canvas. It was a land of infinite possibility. In this vision, it wasn't just about resources. It connected right back to his old ambitions, didn't it? That longing for his own kingdom, a place where he could finally be the undisputed king, the sovereign, free from scrutiny. He didn't see swamps. He saw a prosperous new nation, governed by him, the glorious cazique, ripe for exploitation. He projected his own grand illusions onto it.
And he didn't waste time. Sought out the local mosquito king, a man named George Frederick Augustus, and using charm, flattery, and yeah, probably outright bribery, trinkets, who knows, he convinces the king to grant him this huge tract of land. We're talking 8 million acres. 8 million. But this land grant, it was legally shaky, to say the least, relied on the king's ambiguous authority, which other colonial powers contested anyway, and on McGregor's persuasion. The Mosquito Kingdom did have this complex relationship with Britain, which gave McGregor just enough of a historical hook to exploit, but basically he got what he wanted, piece of paper. And in his hands, that paper became the foundation of his biggest con yet.
Armed with this vaguely official-looking but ultimately pretty worthless document, McGregor sails back to London in 1821, brimming with this meticulously crafted plan. He wasn't just Sir Gregor MacGregor, the dashing soldier, anymore. Oh no, he'd promoted himself. He was now the cazique of Poyais, the prince of a new prosperous nation. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, McGregor instinctively got the power of nation-building as a marketing tool. He wasn't just selling land, he was selling citizenship, a new identity, a fresh start in his sovereign state. Escape the old world, be part of something grand. It added this layer of legitimacy, stability, national pride that simple land speculation just didn't have, made it way more appealing.
And he'd thought of everything. Every little detail to make it seem utterly legitimate. He arrives back in London not just with a story, but with all the props of a real country. He's got a flag, a coat of arms he designed himself, his own currency with his face on it, and even this detailed constitution promising liberty, prosperity, religious freedom, democracy, all the good stuff. He'd built a story so compelling, so seductive, he knew it would captivate London and, tragically, lure hundreds of innocents to their doom. These weren't just props, they were essential. Tangible proof for people desperate to believe.
The whole Poyais story was, in every way, a masterpiece of deception, a work of fiction so elaborate, so detailed, it seemed more real than reality itself. He spoke of untold riches, incredibly fertile soil, multiple harvests, abundant game, a place where any man could live like a king, free from old-world constraints, boundless opportunity, guaranteed social mobility. This narrative, this vision of paradise, was now ready to be unleashed on an unsuspecting public, with consequences that would be truly tragic and deadly. The stage was set for the golden deception, a testament to his cunning, sure, but also to that powerful human need to hope for better.
Let's just quickly picture London again, 1820s. The contrasts are stark, aren't they? Engine of the Industrial Revolution, innovation, progress everywhere, global hub. But underneath, grinding poverty, overcrowded slums, disease rampant, huge social inequality. For every person making a fortune, there were thousands just stuck. Yearning for something more? This was the city, basically hungry for dreams, desperate for an escape from the harsh realities, from that rigid social ladder that felt impossible to climb.
And this is exactly why McGregor's story hit home so perfectly. It was perfectly tailored to the hopes and anxieties of the age. He got the desire for wealth, sure, but he understood that deeper longing too. For a better life, dignity, a fresh start away from class structures, economic limits. He presented himself as this visionary who'd seen the future, and he was offering a piece of it, a slice of paradise, to anyone willing to pay the price. Not just in money, but in belief, in hope. His appeal wasn't just economic, it was deeply psychological, offering reinvention, escape from your station. He promised not just riches, but status, freedom, belonging in this new society built on merit, supposedly.
He starts by carefully building this irresistible aura around himself, right? Mystery, romance, the exotic prince from far away, a man who hadn't just read about adventure, he'd lived it. Danger, escapades, jungle battles, such a contrast to the stuffy British elite. He becomes a regular in the city's exclusive clubs, elegant drawing rooms.
Yeah.
His stories just held audiences spellbound, jungle battles, narrow escapes. He wasn't just telling tales, he was performing, creating this immersive experience, blurring fantasy and reality, using his personal charm to build credibility before even showing any documents.
But McGregor was way more than just a good storyteller. He was a master of propaganda. He instinctively grasped the power of the printed word. In an age of rising literacy, people hungry for information. So he commissions this book, meticulously crafted, Sketch of the Mosquito Shore, including the territory of Poyais. a glowing, entirely fabricated account of his phantom kingdom. And this wasn't just some pamphlet. It was designed to look like a comprehensive, authoritative guide. Maps, illustrations, gave it the weight of an official government publication. Presented as detailed scientific exploration, made it seem even more credible.
And the book itself, a work of artful deception, fantasy disguised as fact, filled with these glowing, super detailed descriptions. Poyais' geography, idyllic climate, amazing natural resources, paints a picture of soil so fertile it could miraculously yield 3 harvests a year, unheard of bounty, promised incredible agricultural wealth. The rivers, he claimed, ran with gold, suggesting mineral wealth just waiting to be picked up, vast forests filled with exotic fruits and rare spices, promise ease, luxury, a Garden of Eden waiting for settlers, every paragraph designed to deepen that illusion of an untouched, infinitely rich paradise, tapped right into that European fascination with exotic lands, limitless resources.
And to really nail it down, McGregor creates a whole range of official-looking documents. A vibrant Poyasian flag, coat of arms displayed proudly in his offices, even on banners around London. He issued his own Poyasian currency, printed with his own royal face on it, lent this air of established sovereignty, stable economy, and maybe most audaciously, he presents a full Poyasian constitution, a document solemnly guaranteeing rights, freedoms for all settlers, promised a benevolent, progressive government. What's fascinating here is just the sheer detail and nerve of his world building. He didn't just tell a story. He created an entire administrative, symbolic, legal infrastructure for a country that didn't exist. That level of fabrication, all that official paperwork, was absolutely key, provided tangible proof for a public eager to believe.
It really was a performance of breathtaking audacity, a con on a scale London had never seen before, maybe anywhere. And the truly astonishing thing, people fell for it, completely. Richest bankers down to the poorest shopkeepers, hook, line, and sinker. They were utterly desperate to believe in a better world, weren't they? Escape the drudgery, the limits of daily life, start fresh, secure their future away from that unpredictable post-war economy. And Gregor MacGregor, the charming, charismatic, utterly ruthless cazique of Poyais, he was more than happy to sell them that dream, packaged as a real, investable opportunity, promising not just wealth, but a whole new identity. #, selling paradise.
Right, so with the stage set, the dream vividly painted, McGregor moves to the next crucial phase, selling the actual Poyasian land and government bonds. He sets up this professional-looking office, right in the heart of London's financial district, Cornhill. That location itself lent credibility, seriousness. This wasn't some dodgy back alley thing. It was happening right where serious finance happened. And very quickly, this office is just besieged. A steady stream of eager investors all clamoring for a piece of this, what they thought was a genuine once-in-a-lifetime chance. The demand was huge. Shows how well he captured their imagination.
And the offerings were, well, frankly, almost too good to be true, which of course they were. Land offered at this incredibly tempting price, 2 shillings and 3 pence an acre. So for just little over £11, you could buy 100 acres of prime Poyasian real estate. 100 acres of paradise, they were told, just waiting. Plus, he sold Poyasian government bonds, promised this astonishing guaranteed return of 6%. That rate was virtually unheard of in London then. Think about it. Safe government consols, the gold standard, yielded maybe 3.5%. McGregor's promise wasn't just generous, it was wildly speculative, but packaged as guaranteed. Played right into people wanting higher returns in that booming, largely unregulated market. Made investors' mouths water. Seems like massive profit, huge security.
And crucially, McGregor was selling way more than just land or bonds. He was selling a whole new way of life. Tapping into that deep desire for reinvention, self-determination, escape from Britain's social straitjacket, sold a dream of escape from the crowded, class-bound old world. Promise of adventure, a fresh start in an untouched land. He painted this picture where a man could be his own master, live in a land of plenty, be part of something new, exciting, a pioneer carving out a legacy in a new society free from old-world corruption and stagnation. It was about empowerment, boundless opportunity, especially for those feeling stuck.
And people bought it all. London, soon Scotland too. Hook, line, sinker, came in droves, clutching life savings, eyes shining with hope. You see, McGregor, this prominent city financier, so captivated he paid a fortune, some say £10,000, to be manager of the future Bank of Poyais. Prestigious, if fictional, job. Then there's the humble cobbler. Modest means, rushes home, tells his wife excitedly he's been appointed official shoemaker to the Princess of Poyais. That title says it all about his hopes for status, right? Even whole families scraped together every penny, bought military commissions for their sons, imagined them as officers in the proud Poyasian army, navy, hoping to secure their kids' futures with status, wealth. The lure cut across every social level.
What happened next was nothing short of a frenzy of speculation, a madness that swept through the city like a fever. The excitement was just palpable, infectious, seemed unstoppable, and at the center, Gregor MacGregor, the consummate puppet master, expertly pulling every string. He'd found and was exploiting the most valuable commodity, not gold, not land, but hope itself, especially hope for a better future, social mobility, escape. And he was selling it by the bucket load, knew exactly how to monetize people's deepest desires, which raises that big question. What specific psychological levers was he pulling? Aspiration, greed, sure, but also that powerful human need for belonging, a fresh start, plus confirmation bias. People sought out info confirming their hopes, and social proof seeing others, even important people, investing. And remember, the lack of tough financial regulation back then meant many ventures, even legit ones, needed a leap of faith. Made it harder to spot McGregor's fraud from just a risky opportunity. Hashtag the ships depart.
By autumn 1822, Gregor MacGregor had raked in a small fortune. Estimates are at least £200,000 from land sales, bond subscriptions. That's astronomical for the time. Tens of millions today. He'd skillfully sold thousands of acres of land that only existed in his head, thousands of worthless government bonds. He'd basically created this entire shadow economy, a phantom society, all built on a lie. Incredible financial success from deception. But the most heartbreaking part, the moment his lies turned into real human tragedy, that was still to come.
Indeed. His greatest and most cruel deception was still ahead. McGregor hadn't just promised investors a piece of Poyais, he'd promised them passage to it, a physical journey. He'd painted these vivid pictures of a new life, fresh start, and now, chillingly, it was time to deliver, sending real people to a place that only existed in his mind. This was the moment his abstract lies became concrete, devastating reality for hundreds, the true human cost of his greed, his deceit.
So, September 10th, 1822, the first ship, the Honduras packet, sails from London. Destination, Poyais. On board, about 70 men, women, children. Faces alight with excitement, maybe some nerves too. They were the pioneers, weren't they? The first wave. Believed they were heading off to build a new life in a new land. They'd liquidated everything, sold homes, businesses, possessions, maybe even cut ties with skeptical families. Foolishly exchanged good English pounds for worthless Poyasian dollars. Placed their trust, their lives in the hands of this man they barely knew, but whose story had completely captivated them.
And McGregor himself was there at the dock to see them off, his face carefully arranged into this mask of paternal concern. Wished them Godspeed, and with his chilling lack of sincerity, promised to join them soon, assured them of his support. Then he just stood there, watching from the quayside, as the Honduras packet slowly vanished over the horizon. A small, lonely ship carrying not just people, but a cargo of broken dreams, the seeds of profound tragedy. His cold detachment in that moment, it speaks volumes about his character, doesn't it? No remorse. Just the satisfaction, maybe, of a master manipulator seeing his plan unfold.
But McGregor, ever the relentless con man, he wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. Wasted no time. Travels north to Scotland, his ancestral homeland. Starts spinning his web all over again. He knew the Scots. Still hurting from the disastrous Darien scheme centuries earlier that failed Panama colony attempt, cost lives, fortunes, crippled the economy, even led to union with England. They'd be naturally wary of new colonial ventures. Yet he also knew they were proud, ambitious, yearning to reclaim their place, eager for opportunity after that devastating failure. He saw that national trauma not as a barrier, but as a unique vulnerability to exploit.
Exactly. He skillfully played on their hopes, their fears, their deep pride, their simmering desire for a successful colonial venture this time. Redemption, almost. Presented himself as a Scotsman himself, a man of the people, one of them. Understood their dreams. A modern Rob Roy leading them to prosperity. Hinted Poyais was Scotland's second chance, led by a true Scot this time. And soon, through charisma, compelling narrative, he had them eating out of his hand. Skepticism overridden by national pride, personal ambition. January 14, 1823, just months after the first ship left, a second vessel, Kennersley Castle, sails from Leith, carrying 200 more hopeful settlers, a real motley crew, farmers, artisans, doctors, clerks, dreamers, schemers, all united by this unwavering belief in Poyais. and the charismatic man who painted the picture.
As the Kennersley Castle pulled away, a huge cheer went up from the crowd on the dock, waving handkerchiefs, shouting goodbyes, a poignant mix of hope and sadness. It was this sound overflowing with hope, optimism, and belief in a better future for these brave pioneers who'd sold everything. But chillingly, it was a sound that would very soon be drowned out by the agonizing cries of the dying. The optimism utterly misplaced, the joy tragically brief. These ships were sailing towards a reality far grimmer than any nightmare. Hashtag the reckoning approaches. The journey across the Atlantic for both ships. Long, arduous. As you'd expect. Vessels severely overcrowded, conditions unsanitary, food meager, monotonous. Barely enough. Miserable, grinding existence at sea, far from the comfort they left. Yet despite it all, spirits remained remarkably high, sustained by those vivid dreams of Poyais McGregor had planted, by the captivating stories, the grand promises. Their hope was this powerful, almost tangible force. Let them endure the misery for the future paradise.
They spent those long days at sea poring over their treasured copies of Sketch to the Mosquito Shore, McGregor's fabricated guidebook, memorized the names of fictitious rivers, mountains, imagined plants, animals, descriptions of bountiful wildlife, welcoming natives, meticulously planned their new lives, envisioned new homes, farms, prosperous futures in this promised land. They were more than just passengers. They were this community of believers, a floating congregation, their shared belief binding them together, building this powerful collective confirmation bias everyone else believes, so it must be true.
But as they got closer to their supposed destination, this unease starts creeping in. A subtle disconnect between expectation and emerging reality. The captain of the Honduras packet, William Smith, a seasoned sailor, he'd actually been to the Mosquito Coast before. He knew for certain it wasn't the paradise McGregor described. Knew it was desolate, disease-ridden wilderness. He tried valiantly to warn his passengers, prepare them for the harsh reality, temper expectations. But they just wouldn't listen. Too invested in the dream, weren't they? Too committed to the lie to even consider betrayal. Their belief was too strong, too comforting, too tied up with their future, their money. They actively rejected the truth for their cherished delusion.
And then one morning, sun breaks over the horizon. They see it. Land. A long, low coastline. But instead of the bustling port, elegant city they imagined, instead of cultivated fields, it's covered in dense, impenetrable jungle. No welcoming harbor, no sign of human life, not even a wisp of smoke, let alone the grand buildings from McGregor's book. There was only the endless, unforgiving green of the jungle, pressing in. Oppressive, suffocating wall of vegetation, and the vast, empty sea behind them, offering no escape. The reality, a stark, horrifying contrast to every promise, every dream.
They had arrived in Poyais, and it was nothing. Absolutely nothing like the paradise they'd been promised. No fertile soil, easy riches. This was a land of malarial swamps, venomous snakes, biting insects, crushing humidity, 1,000 ways to die in the tropics. The dream was shattered. Utterly, completely, replaced by a brutal, inescapable truth. The nightmare had just begun, a nightmare they had paid everything for. So the settlees from both ships, the Honduras packet, the Kennersley Castle, they're standing on this desolate shore. That initial excitement, the nerves, just turning into the suffocating dread. Their dreams, so carefully nurtured on the voyage, turning to dust in the humid air. The paradise they were promised, exposed. A cruel, elaborate lie. The bustling port of St. Joseph, the elegant city, fertile field, rivers of gold, mountains of riches, all of it. A phantom. A cruel joke played on their hopes by a man now safely thousands of miles away, counting his money. The emotional devastation, that sudden, crushing realization of betrayal, must have been immediate. Profound.
They were utterly alone, completely stranded, in a land as alien as it was hostile, the dense jungle looming like this mocking green wall, its depths taunting their despair, hiding unknown dangers. The vast empty sea behind them offered no escape, no way back to the lives they'd so eagerly left. They were trapped, utterly, caught in this terrifying limbo between the devil and the deep blue sea. No rescue in sight, no way to contact the outside world, and almost zero survival skills for such a brutal environment.
For a short time, they clung desperately to hope. Right, maybe a mistake. Landed in the wrong place. The real Poyais just around the bend. In this desperate bid for confirmation, they sent out search parties, small groups of men, bravely venturing into that suffocating jungle, trying to find the fabled city of St. Joseph, or even just clearings to farm. But they found nothing, only more jungle, more treacherous swamps, more of the same suffocating, soul-crushing green that seemed to swallow hope, make progress impossible. Each failed search just deepened the despair, eroded those last bits of self-deception.
As the days bled into weeks, weeks into agonizing months, that fragile hope faded entirely. Replaced by this gnawing, all-consuming despair, they built makeshift shelters on the beach, crude huts from driftwood, palm fronds, offered pathetic protection from sun, rain, insects. Food supplies, already meager, dwindled fast, forced to forage in the jungle. But the jungle was a stingy provider. Little edible, often poisonous alternatives. Soon they were starving, bodies weakening, resolve crumbling under constant physical, psychological strain.
And then, as if things weren't bad enough, then came the disease. Malaria, yellow fever, dysentery. The invisible killers of the tropics started stalking through the camp, claiming victim after victim with brutal efficiency. Lacking medicine, proper shelter, nutrition, their immune systems just collapsed. The once hopeful settlement became this place filled with the chilling sounds of coughing, moaning, desperate pleas of the sick, permeated by the sickening stench of sickness, death. It was a slow, agonizing descent into hell, orchestrated by one man's lie, each death a chilling testament to his profound callousness.
One of the most poignant, tragic examples, the cobbler, humble man, invested his life savings in that glittering promise of Poyais, dreamed of being shoemaker to a princess in this grand new society. His whole identity, future, tied to this dream. Unable to bear the crushing weight of shattered dreams, the relentless misery, the overwhelming sense of betrayal, he just gave up hope, walked to the edge of the jungle, put a pistol to his head, pulled the trigger. That act highlights the profound psychological impact, doesn't it? The absolute breaking of the human spirit facing such an insurmountable, self-inflicted tragedy. Not just physical hardship, but the total annihilation of future, dignity.
Another incredibly heartbreaking story. James Hastie, a Scottish sawyer, brought his wife 3 young children on this ill-fated adventure, watched in agony as 2 of his precious children died in his arms, small bodies racked with fever, succumbing to the jungle's horrors. And it's here. Here you see the true, insidious power of McGregor's charisma, even from afar. Because even then, facing that unspeakable loss, the undeniable reality, Hastie couldn't bring himself to blame McGregor entirely. He rationalized it, didn't he? Maybe thought McGregor himself was misled, or the real paradise was just a bit further, harder to reach. It's a profound testament to the sheer magnetic power of the con man's story, the depth of the deception, that even facing such overwhelming personal proof of betrayal, some settlers still stubbornly refused to believe they'd been utterly duped. Their psychological investment in the dream, the sheer cognitive dissonance needed to admit they'd ruined their lives, just too great to abandon. They'd chosen to believe. And unchoosing that belief was almost as devastating as the physical reality. #tag the rescue and return.
By spring 1823, just months after the first ships arrived, that camp on the Mosquito Coast was a vision of hell on earth. Of the 270 men, women, children who set out with such high hopes from London and Leith, more than half were dead. Relentless disease, starvation, despair took a catastrophic toll. The survivors, horrifyingly emaciated, little more than skeletons, bodies ravaged by hunger, debilitating disease, minds irrevocably broken by the sheer unremitting despair. A scene of utter desolation, human suffering, a silent monument to McGregor's lie.
And then, against all odds, one day, a ship appears on the horizon. A true miracle in a place devoid of hope, the Mexican Eagle, a British vessel on a diplomatic mission to Belize. The captain, a man named Bennett, sailing along the coast, spotted the faint, desperate smoke from their campfires, a sign of human life in an otherwise empty stretch. This chance encounter, this sighting, would be the only hope for those remaining. A random act of fate saving a handful from certain death.
Captain Bennett immediately sent a shore party, and what they found horrified him beyond measure. A collection of crude huts, a handful of emaciated, wild-eyed figures looking more like ghosts than human beings, barely clinging to life. He listened, aghast, to their harrowing stories. Promised land turned living hell. Charismatic prince turned monster who abandoned them. The reality of McGregor's deception laid bare in the terrifying, heartbreaking testimony of these broken survivors. A chilling account of greed, betrayal.
Captain Bennett, truly compassionate, did everything he could, took the remaining survivors aboard, provided desperately needed food, water, tended their wounds, illnesses as best he could with limited supplies. Then set sail for Belize. Settlers immediately transferred to hospital for urgent care. But tragically for many, it was already too late. They succumbed to illness during the journey to Belize or shortly after arrival. Bodies simply too weak to fight anymore. Systems utterly ravaged by the horrors that endured.
Of the 270 optimistic souls who set out for Poyais, dreaming of a new life, fewer than 50 made it back to Britain eventually. They were a pitiful sight, a ragged, broken band of survivors. Had truly been to hell and back. Spirits, bodies permanently scarred. News of the Poyais disaster quickly filled newspapers across Britain, ignited public outrage, exposed the full extent of the Phantom Kingdom to a shocked, horrified world. The truth this time couldn't be suppressed. The scale of the human tragedy finally revealed.
The public, understandably, absolutely outraged, demanded justice, demanded McGregor be brought to account for his heinous crimes, for the hundreds of lives so casually destroyed, calls for his arrest, severe punishment, public reckoning. But the man they were looking for, gone, vanished, disappeared into thin air, already fled London, leaving behind this devastating trail of broken lives, shattered dreams. For the moment, he'd once again escaped the consequences, master of evasion as much as deception, hashtag the great escape. So while the Poyais settlers were enduring unimaginable suffering, fighting for their lives in those malarial jungles, Gregor MacGregor, he was living the high life in Paris, shrewdly fled London as soon as the first faint reports of disaster trickled in, took his considerable ill-gotten gains with him, luxuriating in Parisian society, fine restaurants, exclusive salons, presenting himself as a wealthy, exotic prince, the stark, sickening contrast between his luxury and the agonizing deaths of his victims, whom he deliberately sent to their doom, truly chilling.
But McGregor wasn't one to rest on his laurels or his stolen fortune. He was, to his core, a con man, utterly addicted to the thrill of the game. The deception itself, the elaborate construction of false reality, seemed as intoxicating as the money. Manipulating, charming others, creating belief where none should exist. It was a compulsion. And so, in the glittering city of lights, he immediately starts setting up his next great con, seemingly unable to resist. What's fascinating here is that psychological drive to continue, as if the devastating consequences for his previous victims meant nothing, a clear sign of profound sociopathy. Found validation not in real achievement, but in pulling off the lie.
And, true to form, he quickly finds a new set of gullible dreamers, a fresh group of investors in Paris, equally eager to believe in Poyais' glittering promise, perhaps unaware or unconvinced by the rumors from England. He had the audacity to publish a new, even more elaborate version of his promotional materials. Updated details, grander promises, gold mines, fertile lands, and incredibly issues a new set of Poyasian bonds. Starts actively selling them on the Paris market, recycling the same lie, fresh coat of paint, new unsuspecting audience.
However, this time McGregor had overplayed his hand. Whispers of the Poyais disaster had reached Europe. French authorities, alerted by the British about his past activities, the ongoing scandal, grew suspicious. They launched a thorough investigation. Soon the whole sordid story of the Poyais disaster, the horrific fate of the settlers, came out dramatically in Parisian papers. His new deception exposed before it could fully take root, thanks to international cooperation.
McGregor was swiftly arrested and thrown in jail in Paris. His illustrious career as a con man seemed finally over. But McGregor was, above all, a survivor. Uncanny talent for slipping through cracks, evading consequences. Promptly hired the best lawyers his stolen wealth could buy. Masterfully played the innocent victim, claimed he'd been betrayed by agents, reports exaggerated, never admitting he was the orchestrator, and in the end, astonishingly, acquitted. Court found insufficient evidence to prove he intended to defraud. Crucial legal distinction he exploited brilliantly. Once again, Gregor MacGregor walked out of court a free man. Testament to his cunning and the complexities of proving intent. Hashtag the final act.
Despite public outcry, proven deaths, legal trouble in two major capitals, McGregor, with astonishing, almost unbelievable audacity, returns to London in 1827. A man who'd seemingly cheated death, cheated the law, cheated his way to a fortune. Utterly without shame, without remorse, true sociopath, zero empathy. And incredibly, he's not finished. Brazenly issues a new £800,000 Poyais bond, astronomical sum, and again finds investors willing to buy. Continued selling bogus Poyais land certificates, trading on the lingering seductive magic of his phantom kingdom, leveraging the simple fact he was still free, still speaking confidently. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it truly shows the lasting appeal of his persona, the powerful grip of a well-told story even after the truth of the disaster was widely exposed. People wanted to believe, and McGregor was still there offering that belief.
It's just infuriating, isn't it? He finally, truly retired from the con game in the late 1830s, having carved out this life as a wealthy and unbelievably respected man. In a final, baffling twist, returns to Venezuela, scene of his early adventures, awarded a full military pension for his services in the wars of independence, lived out his final years in comfort, receiving a state pension, the ultimate irony for a man who defrauded so many. Gregor MacGregor died peacefully in Caracas, 1845, a man who lived with almost unbelievable audacity, a man who, despite hundreds of lives ruined, ended through his deceptions, was ultimately never brought to justice for his crimes. A truly infuriating, unjust end to such a devastating story highlights the limits of justice against master manipulators.
And what about Poyais itself? The elusive land, source of so much fervent hope, such immense tragic suffering. It remains to this day a remote and undeveloped wilderness, dense, suffocating jungle, treacherous, malarial swamps. It is, in every sense, a land that is haunted by the ghosts of the past, by the enduring memory of the men, women, children who journeyed there seeking a utopian dream, found only a horrifying nightmare. It stands as this stark, enduring monument to the profound power of a single, audacious lie, and to the enduring, often tragically vulnerable power of human hope and that desperate desire for a better future. #tag, #outro.
Wow, what an incredible, devastating story. From that ambitious, romantic young boy to the ultimate, unrepentant con man. Gregor MacGregor's tale is a chilling testament, isn't it? To the power of deceit, the enduring appeal of a compelling narrative, and the tragic, heartbreaking fate of his hundreds of victims. It's a journey from unchecked ambition to grand illusion and ultimately to profound human cost. Really makes you question how much of what we believe today is truly fact and how much is just a well-told story.
Indeed. It's a story that resonates far beyond the 19th century. So what does this all mean for us? It's a powerful reminder, isn't it, of that potent, sometimes toxic mix, human desperation, unchecked ambition, the magnetic pull of a persuasive narrative. Even today, in our supposedly more informed world, a compelling story, a promise of a better life can still lead people astray, draw them into grand schemes promising everything but delivering only heartbreak. It urges us to question, right? To scrutinize the details, look beyond the surface. Remember that sometimes the most beautifully painted dreams can be the most dangerous lies. The lesson of Poyais isn't just history. It's a timeless warning about the vulnerability of hope.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the phantom kingdom of Poyais. It's a story that forces us to consider where else in history, or even right now today, grand, seductive narratives might still be leading people astray, promising paradise while delivering something far, far darker. Until next time, keep digging, keep questioning, and keep exploring.